What's up, Internet? Welcome back to the Engadget podcast. I'm Senior Editor Devindra Hardawar, and we're doing the live stream. Welcome. Good morning. Joining me is also Deputy Editor Cherlynn Lowe. Hello, Cherlynn.
Hello.
Hello. And podcast producer Ben Elman. Hey, Ben.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Ben, can you hide that window, please?
I told you I can't.
You can't? No, I mean, do the 3-spot top.
Oh, yeah.
Something. Yep. We are testing out something because we're going to
Hello.
some audio. Hello.
Yeah. And hello to everyone. We got people already in here. I had to block someone who was like dropping an ad in Korean for some reason. But Drew is excited to see macOS for the iPad. I don't know where you're getting your information from, but if you have very credible sources,
everybody is hoping for macOS for the
iPad.
iPad.
It's nice to hope, isn't it? To have hopes and dreams.
Yeah. So to shout out, like this is going to be a WWDC preview. So yeah, drop your questions, drop your notes. We are thinking all about that. Who is here?
Hi to Cud. Hi to Take Confidential, who says, "What's up, team?" Hi to Michael Coley, Deepro9, Quad Bennett. Happy Pride Month. Michael Coley also says, "Happy Pride" to Quad Bennett. Hello, Happy Pride Month.
Hello.
Yeah, if you want to really celebrate Pride Month, hit the thumbs up on that stream. You get
okay. Deepro9 woke up early for this. Ryan Chahab, hello. Philip Doyle finished mowing the lawn on time.
Thank you. I mean, you could listen to us while mowing the lawn. It's actually pretty great.
Afterwards,
If you have really good ANC, only if and only if you had really good.
That's how do you live without good ANC while mowing the lawn now? Yeah.
Hi from Seoul from Michael Timpson, and also Mubarak Marafa, I was going to say, saying hi from Hong Kong, Sosan, for me anyway. It's not Sosan for them now. Sir Holmes hasn't watched this in a while, and I got my hair done, y'all. That's probably everybody's like, whoa. I'm like, yes, I am living my true inner blonde life on the outside.
This explains a lot, actually. Yes. Hey, we got WWDC. We got a lot of rumors and stuff, and also a bunch of stuff happened overnight too. Like there's stuff around Humane's AI Pin. Some things we are a little annoyed and angry about. So we'll be diving into all that. Thanks for joining us, folks. As usual,
Simon B. Morning Engadget. Morning, Simon B.
Good morning. We're going to be recording the podcast. We will not always be chatting with the live stream, but drop your questions. Ben will be keeping an eye on things, and we'll do some Q&A when we can. We're aiming to end by noon Eastern, so that is our timeline so far.
So you have like 70 minutes with us. Let's make it count.
Let's make it count. Okay, everybody is recording locally.
Devices
are silent. We're going to get ready to do our thing.
Yeah, and so if you've been on the stream before, you know what it's about to happen. If you haven't, we're going to sync. So we're going to count down from 3. At the end of 3, we're all going to make a sound. You can clap your hands or snap your fingers. And if you want to put a clap hands or snap fingers emoji in the chat, that's always fun. So let's count down from 3, 2, 1. And some silence. Hit that like button on the stream while we're being quiet. Okay.
All good.
Done with silence.
Y'all may also notice another upgrade for Cherlynn. It is called a flat surface. Congratulations.
Or more like a flat surface that isn't on a moving limb of mine.
On a moving limb, yes. Nice. Cherlynn has a table for her laptop and everything now.
But it's also somehow a wobbly table, by the way. So it's moving right now.
I love it. You're like the comedy of errors over here. It's great. It's like I Love Lucy every episode.
Small upgrade. Got a free table from a neighbor. Isn't that
nice? Free tables are good. Okay, folks, we're going to get started. WWDC preview. We'll talk about the Nvidia market cap thing. Apple's stance in AI too. Actually, maybe that story we will wrap into WWDC. But yeah.
And also Humane is a fire dumpster fire.
Dumpster fire. $1 billion dumpster fire that we will talk about.
Maybe literally.
But also Cherlynn is vindicated by this Humane story. But we'll get to it.
I think the whole tech industry is vindicated. But
everybody who says tech reviewers are shills are like, listen, we call
No, it's
crap.
not
We
even
call
that. It's not
garbage.
like
Yeah.
it's also like, can you imagine? Anyway, we'll get into it on the
Yeah,
I
podcast.
we'll
was
get
talking
into
about Cherlynn's specific problem with the
being
thing
burned
getting
thing,
too
yes.
hot.
No,
Yeah.
definitely. We will bring that
So
up for
let's
sure.
get to
Let's
WWDC.
talk about
Yep.
it in the pod. Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. Let's go in 3, 2, 1. What's up, Internet? Welcome back to the Engadget podcast. I'm Senior Editor Devindra Hardawar.
I'm Deputy Editor Cherlynn Lowe.
Hello. Welcome back, Cherlynn. This week we are getting ready for WWDC 2024. It's happening
Yeah.
in a couple of days. Cherlynn and I are going to be going down there to do it just like we did last year. But I don't know, maybe not as momentous as last year's WWDC, where we got a whole
Yeah.
new device, right, and a whole new platform for
Yeah.
Apple. But we're expecting a lot of AI stuff. We'll dive into all that, and we got a bunch of news this week too. But as always, folks, if you're enjoying the show, please be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice. Leave us a review on iTunes. Drop us an email at podcast@engadget.com. And I'm sure you guys will have a lot of questions after this episode, so be sure to do that. And also, you can typically join us Thursday mornings on our YouTube channel for our live stream around 10:30 a.m. Eastern. It's a fun time. Join the crowd, and you can see us on video and see us do very silly things, because we'll be doing some demos too, which may not show up as well in the audio version of the show. All right, let's talk about WWDC. Cherlynn, I feel like we are dead with events because we have
Oh,
come
yeah.
through Google and Microsoft and everything just kind of back to back. And of
Mhm.
course, we knew WWDC was coming,
Mm.
but Apple only sent us invites like maybe a week ago. It's typically like a 2-week
Yep.
lead time that we get to actually jump into it. How
Yep.
are you feeling? What are you looking forward to at DubDub?
I mean, I like going to DubDub. I
I do
like
too.
visiting Apple's campus. It's one of the nicest I've been to. I mean, all
Mhm.
three that I've been to are nice, right? Google, Microsoft, and Apple. But something about Apple's campus just really resonates in my, chestal
I mean,
region.
it is the nicest one. I haven't been to the main Google campus. And also, you didn't see the new Microsoft campus, Cherlynn, which
Oh
you
yeah,
saw
I
it
haven't
build.
seen that
And
yet.
they, these companies, they express their style in their campuses, in their
Yes.
environments, right?
Yes. But as for the actual news we're expecting out of WWDC, I don't know how hype I might be yet. I
Mhm.
mean, we'll dig into kind of what we're expecting, but it just sounds like from all the reporting and rumors and leaks and whatnot, AI is going to be a big deal. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh God. I mean,
We're
like
so
we're so
we're done with it.
inundated
Well,
with
also
all of it.
because that's what I/O was about. Like, was Google saying like, "Hey, this is how we're AI everything," and Microsoft was
And
also like,
Microsoft
"Yeah, here's a whole new AI platform for all PCs." So,
and
I does the dream
Google's,
of AI stuff feel more real this year, at least for you, Cherlynn? Because last year
I
it
don't
didn't
know
feel
about,
real.
I don't
Yeah.
know about more real, right? Like, I
Mhm.
don't know if um, what do we mean by real? But I will say that Google's been
Mhm.
banging on about AI forever, and Google has had and also the word AI itself has been around for so long, decades, right? And what are we really talking about this
Mhm.
year is that generative AI is making its way into a lot of devices and whatnot. With Google, it still felt a little bit like a mix of what we saw with the duplex announcement years ago with the restaurant reservation AI
Mm.
slash whatever you would want to call that. But Apple actually coming out and using and uttering the word AI would be a big deal, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think Apple would say it as many times as Microsoft or Google did in their respective developer conference keynotes, but if they say it at all, I would be like, wow, this is entering mainstream consciousness.
Mhm.
I would bet a, a table that Apple finds a way to rename it or say it in some way that's not the same as everyone else.
Mhm.
But it's also very classic Apple to enter the game extremely late, but maybe make the most waves, even
I
if nothing they
Yeah.
do is groundbreaking,
We kind of talked about that around the Vision Pro, right? Like that was
Yeah,
definitely almost a decade late after all the VR headsets came out, and Apple like sat back and looked at AR and VR and everything. But I don't know
right.
if we can say that here, because based on the reporting we've seen, and by the way, we have a great preview piece by Chris Holtz, so go check that
Mhm.
out for like all our stuff. We are expecting Apple to AI all the things, but the inner story here is almost one of failure by Apple.
Right.
There was a report in the Wall Street Journal last night, kind of detailing what went down here, and specifically, it was that Apple just didn't really seem to have focus around AI stuff. They in 2018 they had hired a former Google engineer, John Gianandrea,
Mm.
to kind of head all of their AI stuff. And according to that reporting, that team, which also included more Google people that he brought into Apple, never quite gelled with the rest of Apple, right? Because Google's like timeline, the way they develop things may take a long time, and they don't like normally have to build products around, hey, we got to release a new iPhone next year, or a new iPad in a couple of years or something. So it seems like that team never fully gelled within Apple. And then most recently, like some of Apple's other executives, like when ChatGPT launched, like got really enamored with that stuff and was like, oh crap, we got to be doing this. So this year almost seems like Apple's like proving that they are not totally behind, because the story, at least since last year, is that Apple is behind, even though you could argue that they've been doing neural engine stuff since 2017, 2018. Like they've been doing computer vision stuff, but they haven't done generative AI stuff. And that's what we're expecting to see at WWDC next week. Kind of stuff that Apple itself has been doing, because there has been reporting about an internal engine that they're working on for Siri to maybe do more things locally, but also partnerships, most likely with OpenAI, according to reporting from Mark Gurman at Bloomberg. Seems like Apple has formed a partnership with them to kind of do similar to what Microsoft is doing with OpenAI, although not to the same degree. Like Microsoft is like half invested
deeply integrated, yeah,
in OpenAI at this point. But basically, being able to trigger OpenAI from Siri, or maybe within iOS and macOS, it seems like something like that is happening. It does feel like Apple's behind, right? They kind of have something to prove, and they don't normally, they're not normally in the weak position as a company, Cherlynn.
I mean, look, I want to point out that in the live stream video chat, Debro9 said IAI, right? Are they going to add an I in front of it? IAI. That's quite funny. And that, AI is our new reality. Apple and all, according to Debro9, Apple always follows, never innovates. I don't know if we can necessarily
That's
say
absolutely not true, because Apple certainly
Vision
follows.
Pro is so different,
You could argue Apple follows, but they follow with innovation that typically kind of like fixes a lot of the mistakes endemic to an industry. So iPod, iPhone,
usually like a thoughtful implementation of something that's been trendy and hyped up for a bit.
And this one seems like they're following the trend in a way.
Right. And this it feels a little early. I can't say, right? Like we haven't seen what Apple is announcing. We haven't seen what Apple is exactly going to say or bring to Siri or iPhones or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it seems early for Apple to be jumping into this too. Like you said, like it's only 2 years that Gen AI has been that much of a hype term. For Apple, this is like they haven't waited 5 years before jumping in. Wow, like that's kind of what I think. Yeah.
Part of the problem is that there's also been a lot of reporting, like Google has been working at this stuff for a long time. Like I think the initial paper around the transformer model came out of Google's own AI research work. Microsoft has been working with OpenAI for several years. Copilot launched for, what is their programming thing called? Their programming system. I keep forgetting the name of that.
Copilot thing?
Yeah.
No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Microsoft's programming tool, which I keep.
Oh, visual. No.
Yes.
Visual
I'm sure
Basic,
somebody
right?
in chat will bring it up.
Okay,
But
anyway.
even Microsoft, like a company that is typically a company that's bad with timing, seems like they were right on schedule for taking advantage of this stuff. Now, I think we could still argue, like, Cherlynn, do you think Apple really needs to compete with generative AI? Because I think at this point, I'm like, what do I do with these images? I really don't want things to write for me, but maybe other people will find that more useful. Do you think this is actually a problem for Apple, or just like a marketing thing?
I don't think the like lack of jumping into Gen AI hype is the problem for Apple. I think the problem for Apple is that Siri is kind of dumb.
Oh yes.
And it definitely could benefit from some Gen AI based like large language model learning type thing, like that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's more sophisticated assistant, whether it be in what Siri can do, which by the way is a lot. Like I gotta say, I don't have that many complaints about Siri. I think that a lot of these voice-based assistants are dumb in some way or another. Like with my Google ones, they're like so bad at responding to me from the correct device, and that might be because I have so many Google devices. But also like Siri is good at like working with third-party apps. Like you can morph, iOS has made it so that it's so much easier.
I kind of feel like
really
Amazon, like as much as we talk crap about Amazon and the trouble within their whole Alexa division, like they haven't been able to make money off of that. But that whole the Amazon Assistant I
Yeah.
think is a little more useful because they did better about integrating with third parties before Apple and before Google did. So, hey, I have one of those devices like in almost every room in my
The
home, and
Echoes, those are so
they
good. Yeah.
they do more, they listen
Yeah.
better, and
Yeah.
Siri, I could have my phone on my table, I could be like, "Hey, blank, hey," nothing.
hmm
Just
I
absolutely no response from an iPhone
I
15 Pro
think
Max. Yeah.
I think what I am most impressed by is that like with the jump to iOS 17, that like
Mhm.
the hot word for the assistant on iPhone is just the name now, and
It's a terrible
it's actually
idea.
very
It's also
no, it's
terrible.
actually worked really well for me. I can say the name in conversation and not have my phone respond, and yet when I'm
Yeah.
directly commanding and saying just the name, it responds very quickly too. What look,
At times, I have
we're
said words like, "Seriously," and my phone would be like, "Hey, can I help you?"
interesting. What phone is it? Not to
iPhone
like
15
shame
Pro
you, but
Max, like, I got the biggest and the bestest, so there's no shame
oh,
here,
okay.
and
Interesting.
the microphone should be good. Even while I'm, like, wearing he AirPods or something, which have the microphones right there and should be
Or
better with
maybe
Siri. I turned off the plain Siri name thing because it happened so often, it was just more
hmm.
frustrating to me. So I think the
Okay, it
"Hey"
worked really well for me. That's so strange. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Mhm.
But I also have to talk to a lot more people, I don't know, in my daily life, shout at
It's true, maybe I'm
children.
quieter. Yeah, I'm not like yelling
You're
at
just
people the whole
you're in your
time.
hole,
At least
Cherlynn.
out loud.
But I agree, like, Siri has been good for some things, and Siri was the first virtual assistant, so that was that was, like, one of Steve Jobs' final products that he was working on. It was his dream of having, like, a thing you talk to, and it helps you out, and I think that dream kind of died, especially as Alexa came out and Amazon proved that, like, having actually a speaker in your room that listens to the entire room
Mhm,
is more
mhm.
useful and can do more things. So anyway, my question for you, Sherlyn, is like, what do you want to see? Like, we've seen all these AI tools. We've seen things from Microsoft, like Recall, by the way, which is getting a lot of flack for being a potential security hazard.
Yeah.
Actually, we'll talk about that later. But we've seen companies try to do Gen AI stuff. I think Microsoft with Recall and like with some of the stuff in Paint where you can like doodle and also type
Co-creator,
in
yeah,
text
yeah, yeah.
and do co-creator stuff. Like that's kind of cool. What do you want to see on iOS or iPadOS or macOS?
Look, I will point out that Drew in our chat
Hmm.
was one of the first commenters this morning saying that they want macOS on iPads, and I think that
Sure.
that's like definitely interesting and something that we've all been hoping some sort of desktop software comes
Hmm.
to tablets, whether on the Android or Apple side. We've been hoping for that forever, but I don't know at this point that as a user I have any requests other than obviously better understanding of dictation in
Smarter
messages
Siri. Yeah.
sometimes, better Siri. Which by the way, I just said that and none of my devices responded, and I thought that was smart. Also but the thing is, I will say this as a reporter, as someone who's
Hmm.
been covering the space for a while, I have different things I am hoping to see. I want to hear that RCS announcement. I want to know more about that. I want to see what this AI announcement pans out to. And you know what? If Siri improves, it'll improve my life too, probably.
Hmm.
Um, Updates on maybe HomeKit. Will there be a
I
HomePod?
mean,
I don't know.
we're going to talk
I'm just
about
guessing.
HomeKit. They're going to talk about CarPlay, but I'm specifically wondering,
Yeah.
what do you want to see in the realm of AI, or does it matter to you? Like, do other features
Oh.
matter more at this point?
I still don't use generative AI features this much, right? When I think of generative
Yeah.
AI features, I think of things like summaries. I think of things like better transcription, maybe. And I would love to see Recorder on the iPhone get
Hmm.
transcripts, right? Um, in the way that like voice messages already do in message. What else do they do? I mean, image like clear the background and replace it with something better. That's another Gen AI
They're
feature
already
that's
doing
good.
that, like the studio
Yeah,
effects
and
stuff,
so
or yeah, the camera
yeah,
effects that Apple does.
right.
Like,
That's I mean when
mhm,
I contemplate the list of common
mhm.
AI-based features that are available on competing devices,
Well,
um,
let's
there's not a
think
lot that I
ahead.
want or use.
I'm asking, think ahead, right? Like, we know what AI can do. We know Apple loves to be like, "Hey," they love to yes and everybody in the tech world, like, "Yes, and we do this, and therefore we're better." There was a reporting from Gurman that, Siri could just do anything, basically, like, it can interact with any app that you're looking at, and also maybe interact with apps that are, like, running in the background or something. So if you're checking email, you could be like, "Hey, Siri, can you, build a playlist for me in Spotify doing yada, yada, yada." Maybe it could do that stuff. True multitasking, because we talked about that dream during the
I mean,
iPad Pro, right?
so I would be really interested to see that whole like, Rabbit
Mhm.
with the R1 said they would have a large action model where it
Siri
can
just woke
use,
up and started
its
talking to me, by the
thing.
way. Yeah.
Oh, that's yeah.
And I didn't
Because
even
you
say
used
hey.
your no,
I
you
didn't even
did.
say hey.
No,
I
you
did?
did.
Okay.
You did. I remember you said it. Yeah.
Well, there you
Because I
go.
was like, I would just say Siri, but so what happens is like if they use that sort of implementation that Rabbit is trying to do where like its AI can actually speak on third
Mhm.
parties on behalf of you, then that's great. I would like to see the limitations, right? Like the same thing that you encountered with the Rabbit R1, where like the third party like integration was just kind of limited. I assume that Siri's going to run into that as well.
Well, Rabbit was working off of websites. So, like, if Uber changed its website, Rabbit would have to go back and reprogram how their, like, little integration with Uber worked, and apparently Uber didn't work at all for me, so I think Uber had done
Right.
something that screwed them up. With iOS, at least, like, it's
Apple
like
has
apps
power.
Apple has power. Apple has, like, more insight into how the apps run and things, and maybe developers can even put in, like, little hooks to be like, "Hey, this is how you better work with this smarter Siri," or something. But to have
Mhm.
something like that that runs entirely on device, I think that would be useful. Like, I think we all just wanna, like, talk to our computers, and that is the goal OpenAI, Google, and even Microsoft is trying
We
to push right here, so yeah.
we all just want to delegate tasks to our assistants. We don't want to do things by hand anymore. And I understand that, right? It's a vibe. I also, by the way, want to point out that I saw either a thread or a tweet or whatever it is, somewhere someone went, I want AI to do my laundry and chores so that
Yes.
I have time to do creative stuff and
Do
art.
my art,
Not
yeah.
AI to do my creative stuff and art so I can do my laundry and my chores. And I
This
thought
is
that was
true.
like so accurate.
That is the
Exactly.
perfect human, like, example, I guess, and also, like, yeah, we've been testing all this stuff. I don't have a huge use of, like, the generative image stuff in AI. I will
Exactly.
say, more recently, I've been, looking closer and closer at, like, how transcription works with AI because 'cause that's been super helpful for us,
Mhm.
and also, like, just online AI tools for, like, podcast editing, and we'll actually do a little demo later on in this episode to kind of show that off, to show, like, what is possible now. It is pretty wild. A lot of these AI tools can be useful, but, yeah, it remains to be seen, like, how Apple's gonna do it. What about other products, Trulin,
Yeah.
like iPadOS, macOS specifically,
Here's
about
the other
AI
thing
stuff? Yeah,
I'm excited to see for no
okay.
reason
Oh,
whatsoever.
I know what you're gonna say. It starts with
You
a
know what I'm gonna
C.
say, right? Let's
Yeah.
say it together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Calculator.
Calculator, everybody. Oh, you
I
were really,
want to
like,
see
hesitant there.
well,
Calculator. Let's be
I
excited
wanna
about
see this
the
calculator. I wanna see this newfangled calculator. What is it gonna do? Is it going to do my taxes? Okay,
that
calculator,
would be great.
do my taxes. Get me a refund. That's what I want.
You
Give me a
shouldn't need
big
calculator
refund.
to do that. You should need the government to, like, put, Intuit, like, destroy
Yeah,
Intuit as a company, which has stopped us from
also that.
having better tax preparation, but yeah.
Different conversation. Uh,
Mhm.
so anyway, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see that. I think iOS 18 is probably going to bring some changes. Where, by the way, according to some of the rumors we saw in our we mentioned in our preview post, um, there might be like you may no longer be locked to a grid on your home screens where
Interesting.
you're laying when you're laying out the apps. Yeah, so you could probably potentially drop them anywhere, like you might be able to on like you can on Android.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I think that's interesting. I don't know if that's necessarily going to
A
change my
messier
life.
home screen. Congratulations. Great.
Exactly. I would love to put a widget in the middle and then like apps somewhere else, like along the
Yeah,
sides,
sure,
flanking the I don't know,
sure.
within reach of my fingers, right? You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
the way it's currently built, I have to think what apps do I not want to use as often versus the ones I want to use more often. So
Mhm.
I'll put those nearer down into the sides,
Do you,
and the middle
how
ones
do
are the
you or we should do, like, a phone comparison screen at some point, but do you care about anything beyond the home screen, Trillin? Because, like, for me, page 2 and 3 and everything beyond, it's like, I don't care.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm never gonna swipe over
I
there. I swipe down, I search for apps when I need to use
I
them.
rely on pages 1 and 2, that's it, right? So,
Okay.
but I also rely on the bottom halves of the pages regardless because I cannot for the life of me reach across because I use a Pro Max now.
Uh-huh.
So the top half for me is for widgets and the bottom half is for the apps that I use. That's why it's like page 1 and 2.
That actually works out
But
pretty
yeah.
well because then you can reach that with your thumb,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's one swipe and tap away. As opposed to reach, drop your phone, crack the glass, and then get your app, you know? So that's how I design my app. So this is interesting. This is a interesting potential new like iOS 18 thing. I
Mhm.
don't care so much about iPadOS, even if like, you
Would
know,
you
I
care if, like, they were like, "Hey, let's emulate macOS a little bit to
yes, I
give you,
would.
like, more
I
stuff?" Yeah.
think on a philosophical and theoretical front, yes, I care. Like functionally, no, because I don't really use iPads a lot. But yes, as a news person, I care. In the same way that, like, do I use the calculator on Apple a lot? No. But do I care if they put out a graphing calculator on a phone? Yes. And can I type 80085 on it? Yes. Like, that's all
Yeah,
I care.
yes, we love typing that. The thing, like, the complaints we had last week or whenever we were talking about the iPad Pro, right, is like how limited it is. It can only do certain things. Like only one app can access your microphone at one time. It may not be able to run a background process. I don't know if virtualizing macOS will be
Right.
the thing to kind of solve that. And
Right.
I almost wonder, like, doing virtualized macOS on like an 11-inch screen, that's not going to be really super helpful to
No.
some people.
It's
So
not touch friendly, yeah.
it's not super touch friendly. I think that's something Apple has totally avoided even thinking about, whereas Microsoft, since Windows 8, has been like, we gotta make these stupid windows. I gotta be able to like put my fingers on them or something. Whereas iPad OS was just like, we're never gonna deal with we never have to think about mouse and keyboards. We're just gonna be
Mm.
fingers. Then they kind of with the whole keyboard thing, I feel like they start to emulate surfaces after a while, and they just never talked about what they said previously about surfaces. So that's
Yeah.
funny. Mhm.
I do want to point out that some of the chatter in our live stream chat has been talking about like what is there going to be a new name for the iPhone assistant, right? And it's some people are like Siri Pro or like Siri Plus or like I don't know what else other than IAI. We shall
Sirai.
see.
Sirai.
Psoriasis, yeah. Um, the
Yep.
also want to say that Sir Holmes mentioned that you just search for the app from the home screen, which actually this is the other way I use the app. So like
Swipe
any
down, baby.
page 2, I
Yep.
just do the search. Yeah.
Yep.
And search was I think an Android feature at first. I cannot remember because how I used it before.
The iPhone search was very bad for a long time. So I think Apple did have to do
Yeah.
some work to like make that better. And also now search can like pull up specific like settings too, which
Can
is
I
kind
just
of
say
nice. Yeah.
yes, that's true. I like the universal search,
Mhm.
but here I love how my iPhone search, right?
Mhm.
Whenever you search something, I will find these random like previous searches on
Mhm.
there or like suggested searches that just don't make sense. One time I saw like one of the previous searches cached on there was like and I was like, what the heck is that? And then recently, by the way, like right now, if I like scroll down on my like home screen, apparently one of the recent searches is the letters POR on Wikipedia. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, I never searched that, but POR is what I called my grandmother.
Aren't you sure? Well, maybe it picked that up, but no
Maybe
like
she's
drunken
haunting me.
late night
No, why would
searching
I
or
search for
something?
my grandma on Wikipedia?
Why
And
would
what on
you?
earth is
I
POR
think
if
you've
not
made the new like horror movie, Cherlynn. The
not
ghost search
horror
term.
movie, a love story? I would love for my grandma to visit me.
Aw,
So
that's nice.
yes,
That's lovely.
it would be nice.
Anything else we wanna mention? I guess in terms of macOS, like, it just
Yeah.
seems like at this point, macOS gets features that were on iOS and were on
Yes.
iPadOS. It seems like Apple's entire energy is focused on iPhones, a
Yeah.
little bit less on iPads, and
Well,
then Macs are just like, "Whatever, man. We gave you new chips.
yeah.
Be happy."
How about Vision Pro?
Yeah, how about Vision Pro? I'm thinking about that right now because there are a lot of things Vision Pro can't even do. Like you can't rearrange the app icons on Vision Pro.
Yeah.
Things just when you
That's
install them,
funny.
they just get stacked, stacked, stacked. And I feel like
Yeah.
it's sort of like somebody who's working on like a major report or something for school. It's like, oh crap, I didn't really fully
Dang.
format this, but nobody's
Oh
gonna install that
no.
many apps, right? Who cares? So I feel like Vision Pro, like with every update we get from them, is like, oh yeah, spatial personas for your FaceTime avatars. That should have been there at launch. Give us some extra month. Give us an extra couple of months, okay? We really need time to do all this stuff. So I feel like Apple was just super. Vision Pro came out hot out of the gate, and it's getting criticized for a lot of things because it's not fully baked and they're kind of
Yeah.
baking it in real time. What would I like to see? I mean, faster performance. I think faster finger gesture stuff too, which may require some hardware updates, maybe not just software updates. But I did notice, like when I was testing that what if experience
Mhm.
on the Vision Pro, a lot of it you're doing like hand gestures, like Doctor Strange and like
Mhm.
the people in the magicians there, along with Wong, and it's just like really inaccurate, because on the Vision Pro you're doing stuff like okay, pinching and scrolling and zooming. It's not super. It doesn't have to be super timely. It's the latency. You can have a little bit of a lag, but when you're playing a game, you want to like
Mhm.
be able to point at something and throw a fireball over here or block a
Right.
shield. And it seems like things were just so wishy-washy that they were just kind of like making those interactions slower to make up for the fact that it's not as good as like a gamepad or something. It's not as
Yeah.
instant. I don't feel the like visceral thing of like throwing a fireball or crafting a spell or something.
Yeah.
So I think the actual hand recognition stuff they got to get better at. I almost wonder
Mhm.
like what they could do because that thing has an M2 chip, which also has a pretty powerful neural engine. I almost wonder like what else Apple's working on to kind of take advantage of that. I believe
Mhm.
the eye tracking and the hand tracking does like tap into that for some of the underlying stuff within Vision Pro. That's something the Oculus headsets can't do very well because they have
Mhm.
much less powerful chipsets. They're using Snapdragon hardware, which have their own like MPU stuff, but not it's not the same. I think I just want more content, Cherlynn. I want more
Yeah.
content, and I want this thing to get cheaper so that people can
Yeah.
actually like start to use it. And it's still a little buggy. Like sometimes when I've been using it in the morning and I put it on in the
Mhm.
afternoon, and I have the thing over my head, I'm like, "Are you going to boot up? Are you going to boot
Yeah.
up?" It's not just like
Right.
your
Wow.
phone or your computer taking time. It's like complete darkness. You have to sit there in darkness while the
That's
device
like
like
some
wakes up or
humane A
something.
level BS, no? Not as bad, I
There's a
don't
lot of
think,
that.
but
So I feel
yeah.
like they got to iron out all these kinks, deliver a
Mm.
lot more content that makes it more useful. And I don't know, court more developers to it. Like, give us more of a reason. I would
Mhm.
actually love better integration with iPhone stuff. Like, if I hold up my iPhone,
Yeah.
give me my iPhone screen in a little window and just show it to me. Because right now, if I didn't like respond to something on my iPhone that is not within the
Mhm.
Vision Pro, it's kind of annoying because then you have to
Yeah.
tap in. You can't do Face ID to log in. You have to tap in
Mhm.
the pin code and everything. So yeah, I'm thinking of a piece of what I'd like to see on Vision
Mm.
Pro. I also don't know if anybody really cares because ultimately it's like it's a very limited device at this point, and Apple hasn't fully sold it to
Yeah,
developers
I don't think so.
or professionals either. So it's I like Vision Pro. I just think Apple has to do a lot of work there, and clearly all their attention is on the AI stuff because that's the
Yeah.
stuff that looks the worst for them. Do you expect any surprises at DevDev, Trillion?
Oh, God, who knows? I think there will be like some kind of iterative hardware upgrade to one Mac product, maybe,
Hmm.
maybe a Mac Studio, maybe a Mac Mini, and that sort of thing. Also to your point about the Vision Pro being expensive, like Deeper
Yeah.
Nine was saying that let me just go take out a 10-year loan to go buy a Vision Pro. Like, wow, that
Hmm.
is kind of what we're staring down with the price there. I do think though, I want to invite people listening or watching the podcast, send us an email podcast@engadget.com with your idea of what the next version of macOS is going to be named after. Are they finally going to be like macOS Napa,
Napa.
macOS Wine Country, macOS Yosemite?
That we've had Yosemite.
Oh, I
Have we had
mean,
Venice
but
yet? Have we had Venice yet?
ooh,
Yeah.
maybe Castro. I don't know, whatever. macOS Frisco. Everybody will hate
Nope.
it.
Everybody will hate it.
But
You
anyway,
can't do that.
send your guess, your best guess, to podcast@engadget.com.
macOS Petaluma. And everyone's gonna be like, "What's
Ooh.
It's just a city.
macOS
It's
Los
just a city."
Angeles.
There's a lot of things. I want to briefly shout out that one surprise we could see is that we saw this
Yeah.
report from Gurman a while ago, just saying like Apple is dabbling in home robotics, home
Oh
robots,
yeah.
and there is room like for this company that is certainly thinking hard about like home automation and home devices and stuff to be like, well, here's a what if we turn the home pod into a thing that is more of like a little home robot that follows you around, can sit on your kitchen counter and move the camera around almost like that one of those Google tablets, right? The one that moves the actual tablet
Yeah.
screen. I almost wonder, like, I think we had talked about this at the time, but I feel
Yes,
like
we did.
the iRobot
Yes, exactly, we
acquisition
did.
failed.
Yeah.
And yeah, Apple still seems like a good potential.
If
If they just
we
wanted IP and cool
yeah.
stuff, that
I
would
mean,
be a smart one.
the real only thing like that prevents I think Apple from truly just buying over Roomba slash iRobot is
Mhm.
the fact that they probably never want to say the word poop or dirt. You know, they just don't want to deal with the idea that life
Mhm.
can get messy and dirt is a real thing and stink sometimes happens.
Stink
Um,
sometimes happens.
Michael Timpson says something that I actually wanted to say too. Apple
Mhm.
Car, didn't they like fire all kinds of people or
There's no Apple
something?
Car. Like it did
Exactly.
the whole thing we talked about was like seems like that project is at least
Just
on
dead
the
in the
back
yeah.
burner. They did
Yeah.
do a lot of work for it. So I almost wonder if like if in a couple years, like when EV batteries are a little like cheaper and it's easier for them to like design something like that, maybe it
Yeah.
could be resurrected in some
Yeah.
form. maybe a self-driving pod, but the tech wasn't there over the past decade for them to really do the car, it seemed.
Yeah. So that's probably not coming, and it would
No
be
Apple
extremely
car.
surprising if it does. Some funny macOS names in the chat. Michael Coley says macOS Alcatraz, which I did drop last year.
Mm,
Michael Timpson says macOS Venice Beach, which I was thinking about, and Michael Timpson adds muscled software. Which okay, you know what? I think maybe Apple is gonna pull a like 180 and be like macOS Manhattan,
no,
macOS
never.
Soho. Oh, macOS Rodeo Drive.
macOS Rodeo. I mean, macOS Hollywood will be selling out if they ever do that.
Yeah, they did. I don't know.
macOS The
Anyway,
Hills.
uh, lots of ideas, lots of
Lots of
potential
ideas.
there.
All right. Stay tuned, folks. Like, yeah, we will have some more WWDC coverage coming up. Stay tuned. We'll do the live blog. Cherlynn and I will be live blogging together Monday morning, and we're going to have a whole bunch of coverage over
Yes.
at Engadget. So, yeah,
Come
be
support
ready.
us.
Come support us. Watch us live blog. Share what you can. And
Yes.
yeah, we're going to be running around Apple's campus for 2 whole days, talking with people and demoing
Yeah.
things. So, I'm excited, but also not looking forward to all the running around. That place is
Yeah.
very large. And also, yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to write a lot, Cherlynn. I think it's gonna involve
Yep.
a lot of work too. So
Yep.
we're gonna try to have fun while doing it, folks. And maybe we'll do a quick podcast from Apple, like as soon as they do things, or as soon as we get some hands-on time
Down.
with some of
Some
their
time to
demos.
do things. Yeah.
For sure. All right, let's move on to some other news.
Mhm.
Surprise news overnight. Nvidia has surpassed Apple as the second most valuable U.S.
Wild.
company. Its market cap. Let me just read here. It hit a $3 trillion
3
market cap.
trillion.
Nvidia had a market value of 3.019 trillion Wednesday after I think right after close. Apple was at 2.99 trillion. Couldn't do a little
Mm.
better, Apple, to really take this on. Microsoft is currently the most
Oh,
valuable publicly
wow.
traded company. Its market cap is 3.15 trillion as of Wednesday. So I'm not too surprised, but this is certainly an example of like when there is a gold rush, you got to sell the shovels, right?
Yeah.
And Nvidia is selling all of the shovels to
All the
power
AI.
the AI
All of
ship.
the AI. Yeah. And that's so closely tied to our next like other news item, which is that like Apple is slipping because of its inability to like really be at the
I
forefront
do.
there.
I think we kind of pretty much mentioned like all of this
Yeah.
story, Sherlyn, but yeah, the story is like Apple slipping because of that Google hire that they brought in.
Mhm.
The Nvidia thing is still wild to me though. Like, did you
Yeah.
5 years ago, Sherlyn, would you think Nvidia
No.
would be so powerful? Because hey, we knew GPUs were important then because the crypto bros and everybody were like all over GPUs. It was being used for GPU mining. GPU like the crypto stuff still felt like a
I
flash in the
mean,
pan. There is some like lasting stuff there, but Microsoft being the most valuable company that's publicly traded now makes sense because they went all in on the cloud and
yeah.
Azure stuff. And then they started combining cloud plus AI. So their like lead is probably going to be pretty strong for a while. But NVIDIA just really lucked out because I remember 5 years ago or even earlier, like I had to report on a lot of NVIDIA AI work and they talk
Yeah.
about like self-driving stuff that they were building and
Yeah.
it looked cool, but it didn't feel real. Like this was not a product that people could actually use and it didn't feel like it actually existed in our dimension. It existed in NVIDIA's dimension.
Yeah.
And now I guess it paid out for them. Like Jensen Huang, the CEO and founder of NVIDIA, is just like must be the happiest man on earth right now.
I just want to say that I think maybe I should have seen the writing on the wall
Yeah.
for Nvidia's success when, and I don't know if that's the right saying, but I think when during the pandemic they kept selling out, they were out of stock. I
Oh,
think
sure.
partly that was because of supply chain issues, but partly I don't think I personally have been, aware of demand for Nvidia's GPUs being as high as it was during the pandemic with like what RTX 4080 series.
Yeah. I
I mean,
mean,
they brought ray tracing 5 years ago. Was that what they did? I don't know what it
not 5
was,
years ago.
right?
No,
But like
that was like 2 or 3 years ago at this point, but
exactly. So like
ray
they've
tracing
done
was
so
good.
many different
Mhm.
things to bring like new capabilities to their GPUs, their graphics cards, and I think
That's just for
yeah,
gamers, and even the ray tracing thing, like, hasn't I don't
even
think has ever fully taken off. It's cool.
sure, but it's one
Um
thing that
mhm.
improved on the graphics cards the way like I think people just kept talking about.
People yeah, like, the gamers were certainly all over it, and AMD, I think, was failing to, like, keep up in the high-end GPU market, but then AMD is like, "Hey, all our hardware is in Microsoft's console and Sony's console and Ni not Nintendo's console." But their hardware is elsewhere, so AMD was like less worried about the high-end market. But anyway, good news for Nvidia. I don't know how long it's going to last. We should talk about this Humane thing, Cherlynn, because there have been a couple
Mhm.
updates, and
Mhm.
I guess I'm happy, Cherlynn, that your Humane AI pin did not go up in flames, because that is
I
apparently what
mean,
they're warning people of. They are warning that the battery case, was it the specifically
yes, the
the
charging case.
battery
Yep.
charging case, they received a report that could catch fire, and they sent out a note to all customers that out of an abundance of caution, they're telling people to stop using it.
Yep.
That seems bad to me.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Funny. At 4 p.m. yesterday, I got this email, and I immediately was like, "Yo, guys, we need to like cover this."
Mhm.
And our team rightly asked me to ask Humane, will they be sending out replacements or will they be refunding people because these cases do
Mhm.
cost you money? Um, and our podcast producer Ben did point out, in the earlier part of this live stream that I am vindicated in a way. Yes, that like that thing was burning me, right? Like the
Yeah.
pin itself,
That's the pin
the
itself, not
booster
just the
pack,
charging case, right? Or was
the
it the
boost,
same
yeah.
thing?
So the booster pack and it was running warm. The
Mhm.
pin itself had the like metal edges that would feel like they were burning, like hot for me to touch. And then when they sat in the carrying case, I never had it like on me. So it's hard to tell whether it ever burned me. But the carrying case and when the pin came out of it after being in there and charging for a bit would just be warm as well. I also would like to point out that the carrying case, even with the pin inside or without, would just lose charge
Yeah.
slowly throughout the
Yeah.
day.
Oh,
It
great.
doesn't make sense that it wouldn't hold on to some of the juice to continue charging the pin. Anyway, it would just be dead after a while. I'm just like, why is this not charging? Oh, because the charging case itself is also dead. Um Basically what Humane's email entailed was that they found like a quality issue with one of their battery vendors, and they didn't specifically say that anyone had caught on fire. There was just one report
It was an
that led them
incident.
to investigate, and then they then found out that there was a quality issue that may be a fire safety issue. So like, okay, cool. Glad I stopped using that thing.
Yeah,
Glad
if
that
you
like
needed
it's
another reason not to spend $700 plus a monthly fee on
8.
this
Yeah,
garbage
7. Yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
Yeah.
This
Um.
garbage product, you should
Anyway.
another reason not to buy it. And also there was a New York Times piece that was, like, perfectly timed for this about how Humane failed, and they talked to a bunch of people working there and also the CEO and the founders too.
Yeah.
And, reportedly, they have only sold 10,000 orders, but we have talked about the fact that they are also trying to sell themselves to other companies.
Yep.
HP's name is up there for $1 billion. I want that life, Sherlyn. I wanna, like, sit and build a failed product that fundamentally doesn't solve any problems, is a disaster on every level, and then be like, "Hey, give me a Billy for this. Give me
Yeah.
$1 billion for my failure." It's kind of
And I want to
amazing.
point out,
Mhm.
this brings me back to the conversation of, I mean, A, we have talked about how high this valuation is in previous
Mhm.
episodes already, but B, like, when Ben said we were vindicated, I want to say that like the industry, all of us tech reviewers and
Yeah.
journalists and media and influencers, including Marquez, of MKBHD, were criticized on some level, right? Like I think MKBHD got a lot of like
Yeah.
criticism around like, oh my gosh, you single-handedly would bring down this. How can you do that? And can you
Maybe they
imagine
shouldn't
like had
suck.
he
Yeah.
imagine had he not actually fairly addressed and criticized and brought up the fact that this thing runs hot or this thing is, and then
Mhm.
here we are 1 month down the road, nothing really has caught on fire yet, but like if these came to light after a row of like, unfairly positive coverage, then our what kind of trust would we have? What kind of credibility would we have with
It's
our audience,
the only people complaining were typically, like, the Silicon Valley bros and startup
Yes.
people, but in that New York Times reporting, there are several instances of people at Humane being like, "This is not ready, we have issues with how it's done," and those people were reprimanded for saying
Me
anything negative
That's
about the
wild to
product
me.
of the company, and that is a sort of,
'Cause
like, it is a cult mentality that a lot of these companies operate on. It's like, "We're changing the world, we have hundreds of millions of dollars of funding, nobody has seen this tech before." Who cares if it isn't fully baked or if it's not solving genuine problems?
wild,
Who cares?
wild.
Yeah.
I remember during the review process where I was like, I walked into the Humane AI office in New York to take my briefing and saw
Yeah.
witnessed firsthand that all of the staff people there were wearing Humane AI pins and walking around the office. I'm like, how could not a single one of them have found out? And turns out maybe they did, and
Maybe
maybe they
they
were
did.
just reprimanded,
They
and that's
literally
not
just
fair.
don't want to hear it. There's a great quote at the end of that New York Times piece, which you should all read. But Bongiorno, the CEO, says, "You don't know everything before you launch." Yeah, no shit. Yeah, yeah. Maybe if you don't want to hear everything before launch. And Mr. Chowdhury, he's not the CEO, but he's also one of the founders. He was the guy who did that whole TED talk. Said uh, they definitely wish that it were able to resolve some of those things a little bit differently. Um, Specifically, he has a line. I'm going to pull this up here, but his line is kind of hilarious because it's like, "I just want to build things." That's kind of how it ends. I'm like,
I
yeah, building things is
Yeah,
nice. Build
yeah.
something useful.
I,
Yeah,
I I will say that whenever I'm like when I met them and in my interactions with them, Bethany Bongiorno and Ron
yeah,
Chowdhury, they're like this couple. They're
they're
so,
married. Yeah,
they seem nice, at least to me, right? And I think that I am aware that there is a privilege in terms of the relationship here, that they kind of have to be nice to me, right?
and I
Um,
don't care how nice they are too. Like, it's great that they're nice to you. They
the
could
but
be
the
great
product sucks.
people. They could be great people, but I'm
Yeah,
not talking about their personalities. I'm not
I know.
trying to date these people, right? It's like,
Yeah.
is
Well,
your
maybe
thing
I am.
good?
No, I'm kidding.
Is your thing good? And it wasn't, and it's sad. It's kind of sad, and also the response from the tech industry of like, "Why you got to be so mean, bro?"
That's not nice. Yeah, that was
That's
just,
not fun.
come on. I mean,
It's pathetic. Yeah.
but what I mean is that, like, yes, they seem like nice people to me, but it's really not nice to hear that they might have reprimanded some of the people who are trying to raise
Mhm.
alarms, or trying to be like, this is not ready for selling, and you should not. Like, they could have been protected from all of this. Not even protected. They could have just had a better product at launch had they listened to some of their own staff, if this report turns out to be true. So,
Yeah.
um, while you look for that
No,
quote,
we're done. We're done with the quote.
okay.
He basically said he just wants to build, but I do want to note that New York Times piece does have apparently Chowdhury and Bongiorno had like a
Mhm.
meeting before the launch, being like, prepare for bad reviews, like
Sure.
really bracing the staff for like, this is not going to go well. I
Yeah.
wonder why, guys. Like, it
Yeah.
almost seems like they were well aware of
I
like
mean,
all
they
the
knew
problems.
because the reviews, the process
Mhm.
included them asking us what we thought, and all of us reviewers were like, "We're having all these issues. What's going on?" The Moon in our chat says, "This is a problem in the industry. Releasing products with future functionality promises is the new hotness. It can't be allowed to continue." And yeah, we again have said this, like, God,
This has been done
episodes
before too. This
past.
has been done before
It's
by
not
other companies.
humane
Yeah.
alone. Like, even sometimes when the Surface Duo was launched, it was like, software updates are coming to make the experience better.
Yeah.
But buy it now, though. No, that's not going to happen.
That's not how
Um,
we review things or have to score things. This all actually ties into the next thing we want to bring up, which is
mhm,
a story about AI workers demanding stronger whistleblower protections in an open letter. It includes, it was signed by 13 current and former workers with ties to Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic. We don't really talk about Anthropic very much, but they're also another major AI company. And specifically, they're asking for here's a good quote from that letter. "So long as there is no effective government oversight of these corporations, current and former employees are among the few people who can hold them accountable to the public. Yet broad confidentiality agreements block us from voicing our concerns, except to the very companies that may be failing to address these issues." So, end quote. This is another example of these companies, like people at these companies, bringing up problems and then being reprimanded for it. And specifically, there was another story. One of the OpenAI people, what's his name? Leopold Aschenbrenner, who on the recent Dwarkesh podcast, which is the thing I've never heard about, but apparently this guy does 4 hour long podcasts. They're deeply researched. So kudos to him. But he was saying, like, he brought up Aschenbrenner brought up issues to the OpenAI board about security and safety and how they're deploying things, and by bringing those issues up to the board, HR reprimanded him because of that, because OpenAI leadership didn't want the board to see that. And they called it a security incident, even though he's bringing up stuff that the board should know about, and also information that was publicly available, like when OpenAI said they wanted to do AGI, like a general time frame of 2027 to 2028. They were calling that confidential information. They were saying that out in public. So it just seems like they wanted to fire this guy because he told the board something that kind of ruined the rosy image that Sam Altman wanted to build for it. Like, that's what it is. That's kind of what this letter is pointing to as well. What do you think about this, Cherlynn?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think the best point that someone in our chat brought up, I
Mhm.
think it was the moon, um, is that it seems like there's very dark in these AI companies, with lots more of these stories surfacing, right? These things about HR oversight and all of that coming up. I don't know. Like you said, it's tied into that humane situation where reportedly people like, they didn't specifically whistleblow, or it wasn't about like ethical
Mhm.
type of stuff, but yeah, they're not being listened to. Um, and I think this is a result or byproduct of hype, of like there's a hype train, everyone's jumping on board, and where the train has to keep going on. And if you try to slow the train down, you're not going to be listened to, even though there might be like an obstacle in the path, there might be like some kind of dangerous issue coming up. They're not listening. And I think this is all, again, I've said this over and over again, it's all capitalism's fault.
Mhm. I mean,
And
it,
people are
it
awful.
and it's all hyper capitalism's fault, which is like what Silicon Valley
Exactly.
is all about. Is all about like we gotta build this thing that will get a ton
Yeah.
of VC funding, and we sell out. We cash out for at least $1 billion, and then we will be successful. Yeah, kind of a pain.
That's just wild to me.
It's just wild.
I'm so
So,
disappointed in
and this is
humanity
how
sometimes.
we're entering WWDC, by the way, where Apple is partnering with this company, which is kind of shady. It almost seems like they're making a deal with the devil just to be so people will stop yelling at them about
Yeah.
being behind on generative AI stuff. This is going to be an interesting WWDC to see how much Apple leans in on OpenAI and
Mhm.
how much they want to do their own thing. All this is
Mhm.
connected. It's all we've been saying, right? Like I think a
Mhm.
lot of these companies can't be trusted. I don't trust like how they're handling information, like how they're pulling things in or how they're thinking about security. Clearly, their employees think the same thing. That's something to think about the next time you use ChatGPT or any of these
Yeah.
services. Yeah. Some quick updates. We did see that Boeing's
Yeah.
Starliner has finally lifted off and it's headed to the ISS. The latest update I saw is like it is on track. They were dealing with like
Mhm.
maybe some sort of helium leak, so I'm hoping that's not going to be anything major. Hoping they
Wow.
board and are able to return safely, but good on Boeing because it seemed like they were having trouble with just planes recently.
Yeah.
I was on
Maybe.
one of those Alaska airline planes. I was looking I was like, "Wait a minute. 747 MAX. That's not
Uh-oh.
good." Alaska
How big are your
Airlines.
windows really is the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like
Boeing has seemed like it's been in trouble. The Starliner launch has been scrubbed several times because of weather and other difficulties. So it's cool. They launched. They're headed to the ISS. I'm hoping that all goes well. In other news, we're also prepping for the Summer Game Fest 2024, which is also
yes.
happening this weekend. Too much stuff
God, yeah.
happening all at once. Summer Game Fest
What?
Live is June 7th at 5 p.m. Eastern. I hate you so much, Jeff Keighley. 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Eastern? What?
Mhm.
On a Friday?
Is it Eastern? Okay, I thought it was
Yeah.
Pacific 5 p.m., but
No, it's Eastern.
yeah,
We
it's Eastern.
all like yelled at him for that. There's Day of the Devs after that, which is more like developer oriented. Devolver has their
Mhm.
thing also on June 7th. Xbox is June 9th. Ubisoft Forward is June 10th. We'll be doing all this coverage.
By the way, June 10th
Yeah,
is WWDC. Just FYI.
yeah. That's great. That's great. We're not dying over here. We don't know when Nintendo's going to do their thing. We haven't talked about Sony's PlayStation unveiling event that was last
Uh-huh.
week. It was not very momentous from what I saw. We
Okay.
did a lot of coverage. Go check that out on Engadget, but there was nothing that really jumped out at me.
Mhm.
Um, kind of a weird thing. This is basically the sort of E3 season. E3 is not
Yes,
happening,
exactly.
but all these companies are getting together and having major game announcements. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see.
Well, come back to Engadget.com for all of the updates. Our team we have people on the scene, and we are also covering it remotely. Basically, quite a lot of people will be writing stories. So come check it out.
Okay, let's
Okay.
do a little bit of
Let
a
me
segment break. Let's talk to chat while you get ready for the next
I'm
segment.
ready. Let's just go because we're running out of
We can,
time. So
yeah, we
I'll
can
I'll
talk
lead
some
right into it.
chat. We'll
Okay,
do a
Ben?
bit of Q&A after. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let me
sure.
lead right into it because I'm gonna ask you some questions, Ben, so be ready to respond, I
Yeah.
guess.
It's,
You have your demo. Yeah.
Because yeah, I just see the time. I'm gonna
And
keep
we
this
have
going.
not a lot of time left. Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm recording. Let's go.
Okay. And let's do something a little different, folks. We want to show off something that we did last week where we actually took advantage of AI. I've been using the online tool Descript quite a bit for some like podcast editing while on the go, just to make life easier. That's how I got that build interview out. And Descript has like a lot of automated tools that can just clean up your audio, give you studio-like sound. We had a problem last week where my co-host Nathan Ingram joined while a
Mm.
jackhammer was right outside his window. Just
Okay,
the
let's
entire time.
be like more accurate here.
Yes.
He knew that street construction was happening on his street, and we were all hoping and praying that it
Mhm.
would not occur during when we were recording.
This is podcast
How
producer Ben
stupid were
speaking, by
we,
the
though?
way. Yeah.
Yes. How stupid were we, though? Because how can we just expect construction workers to burn daylight?
They're not gonna. We were hoping that it just wasn't gonna be that bad. It turned out to be pretty not great during the live stream. You could go back and take a look at that. And we're like, okay, what can we do to salvage this? Also, Nate muted as much as he could. It was just that it was a thing that was really constant whenever he was talking. And we thought like his audio may have been unsalvageable. Ben, podcast producer extraordinaire, did a couple tweaks of his own to trying to like clean up the audio. And I spent 10 minutes I dumped it into audio, into Descript's like audio cleanup stuff. I think I ran the compressor on it, which kind of tightened
Okay,
it up a
but
little.
let's
Yeah.
play the first version.
Yeah. We'll do that. I'm just saying what happened. I will say like the Descript tool that came out, what ended up happening is like almost magical coming out of Descript. But let's play the original audio. We're gonna play a little game over here, and we're gonna see how this works. Let me just see which one here. Okay. This is the original audio as we heard it from Nate.
But nonetheless, everybody communicates, everybody sends emails, everybody has thoughts in their head, and you put them down, and it sounds like you, usually, at the very least. Whereas when you AI it, it doesn't sound like anyone.
That's bad.
Not good.
Pretty bad. It didn't sound as bad when on the stream, but I also think the stream may have like quieted some of that. So we have 3 different versions of what Ben did to fix this. Okay, here's version A.
But nonetheless, everybody communicates, everybody sends emails, everybody has thoughts in their head, and you put them down, and it sounds like you, usually, at the very least. Whereas when you AI it, it doesn't sound like anyone.
A little better.
Yeah,
cleaner?
that's pretty good.
Not bad at all.
Version A is what I use to clean up all audio that comes into the podcast. That's Isotope, and I
Mhm.
think I used the spectral denoise feature on Isotope. This is not AI. This is just using like trying to figure out where like background noise might be in the whole spectrum of the hertz values. But the problem is that when you run that, there must be something about a jackhammer that sits in the same like
It's bad,
band
yeah.
that the human voice is in, so it took a little bit out of Nate's voice.
Yeah.
So why don't we try version B now?
Version B. Let's go.
But nonetheless, everybody communicates, everybody sends emails, everybody has thoughts in their head, and you put them down, and it sounds like you, usually, at the very least. Whereas when you AI it, it doesn't sound like anyone.
So
It's really good.
yeah, this one sounds a little bit better. This one is from Supertone Clear, which is a new plugin that a lot of radio folks I know have used more as a de-reverb than
Mhm.
anything, because like Isotope is one of the industry standard things that you find a lot of podcast engineers using. But Isotope de-reverb is not that great, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
So when Clear came out, Supertone is a South Korean company, I think. Everybody was like really, really excited. Everybody was jumping on the beta. I'm really happy that I got beta pricing on this, but you can still tell that there's some
There's a
like
jackhammer.
in the background.
Yep.
So let's listen to the last version.
Here's the last version, folks.
But nonetheless, everybody communicates, everybody sends emails, everybody has thoughts in their head, and you put them down, and it sounds like you, usually, at the very least. Whereas when you AI it, it doesn't sound like anyone.
What happened?
That's the version that ran on the podcast. I felt like I had to explain, like, hey,
Yeah.
Nate is going to sound like a little bit weird, a little bit
Yeah.
robotic, but it's entirely him. And that is the Descript cleanup. That is
That's really
Descript
good.
That's
AI-enabled
crazy. It's
cleanup,
not just
and
really good,
it's
Cherlynn. It is
nuts.
insane.
I know.
It's
No, all I'm
insane
gonna
that
say
it's
is this.
gone.
All I'm gonna say is this, Ben, what you're telling me is I can now record my podcast right next to a jackhammer
It'll
and
be
be
fine. It'll be
okay.
totally fine.
We're
yes,
going to
you
do
can.
all our recordings from the show floor from now on.
If you feel the need to have a hair dryer going on you constantly, you can still record a podcast.
Please
maybe.
don't do that. Please,
My
Yeah,
like
no, please
my
don't do
wind
that.
action fan, my
in truth, we
drama
should have just
photos.
we should have just stopped Nate. Like when we heard like, hey, maybe there's
Yeah.
outside construction. Should have just been like, no thanks, Nate. It's okay. We'll just go. But we were brave. We thought it may get better. This Descript tool took me. I dumped the audio in. I hit the Studio Effects button. I did I didn't put the compressor on, but I did the thing where you limited low pass noise. So high pass filter. That's I keep.
Mm.
Yeah, I did the high pass
High
filter on that
pass
one too.
lets high pass through.
Yes.
Low pass
Yes,
lets
let's
low
low
pass
pass.
through.
But then people also call it like low pass cutoff, which is different. It's a different thing. The cutoffs are different. Anyway, I did those two
Yeah.
things. It took 10 minutes and I delivered this audio to Ben, and I think Ben almost fainted.
Yeah, no, I was really
Yeah.
surprised.
Wild.
I was also really relieved because most of
Yeah.
the show was just Devindra and Nate talking.
Yeah.
And so this pretty distinctly proves that AI noise reduction is a path forward. Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
this is something that is genuinely useful for music producers,
Mhm.
audio engineers, people who work in radio. You just have to get used to the weird robotic sound. And when we were talking about the weird robotic sound, we were also talking about showrunner AI, right, Dev? Tell us more about that.
I mean, showrunner AI is kind of part of this too. This was a thing that launched last week. I didn't have a chance to write it up, but showrunner AI is a thing from this company. I forget the. I gotta look up the name of it right now, but they got a lot of buzz because they were like, "Hey, you could type in a prompt, an AI prompt, and produce a TV show. You could produce something that looks like South Park or something." And it just all kind of reminds me of this in a way, like yeah, I don't think that product is very good. I think it got a lot of flack for this too, but it just reminded me of it because it's like, hey, I think this cleanup tool is a really good, useful form of AI, and by AI, it is doing a low-level process to basically take away every little bit of that jackhammering, which is possible by a human, but would probably drive you insane because it's doing a lot of like repetitive, low-level work, and that is the sort of thing AIs are good at. Whereas showrunner is trying to sell you, hey, let's build a whole TV show around this thing, like with no work or anything. There are a couple examples out there, and that is the sort of AI stuff where I'm like, it's not funny. I was actually talking to the CEO of this company too. Like I heard the demos, I got the pitch. I was like, dude, this is not funny. This is not good content. People will rag on you for even producing this. And I got some feedback that was like, yes, I have been thinking about this too. They still went ahead and launched the thing. And to me, that seems like a failure of like how we think of AI. Whereas, hey, just giving actual artists the tools to make their art better or to do their things more easily is a better function of these tools rather than just do the art, right?
Well, yeah, and I want to shout out a comment from our live stream that says, "Sell your shares in high-end microphone companies. AI is about to put them out of business." That's not true.
Not true.
What's going to end up happening is that the high-end microphone companies are going to end up selling you the same microphones and then maybe a little piece of software that either runs inside the microphone itself or that you can use as post-processing that makes your directional mics sound even more directional.
They're kind of already doing that. Like there's already a lot of mics with processing built in. They're not using AI or NPU stuff yet, but yeah, certainly the door is open for that. I also want to point out, folks, like I used this Descript tool when I did the Pavin interview at with Microsoft. I did that build. I did that with just the iPhone voice for memo, app. So using my iPhone's mics, and it was like I can hear like how it's not great, but the Descript tool did a good job of making it feel more listenable. So I think that's kind of cool. Anyway, we just want to shout out these examples because.
And I also want to point out that we are not doing an ad for Descript.
We're not doing
so
an ad.
No, we are absolutely
this is
not
just
doing
like
an
real life
ad
experience.
for Descript or AI, period. We're just saying like, hey, here are some tools that actually are useful.
Because I think there's a lot of knee-jerk reaction right now, and certainly earned among artists and other creators. There's like, hey, all AI bad. You know, anything people talk about, especially generative AI, mostly bad, and I tend to agree. But also, we have to consider like that these tools exist and how they can also make our lives a little better. Just putting that out there. Let's move on to what we're working on. Hey, WWDC prep. Anything else, Cherlynn, from your side?
I mean, as we speak, I am working through an edit, so that's great. Check out if people on the live stream see my laptop wobbling is because I'm typing. Yeah, general WWDC prep, like you said, but also lots of behind the scenes team planning type things and
Okay.
hoping to get Engadget better and better. And let us know what you think of all the products that we have, like the podcast, the live stream, the website, what you would like to see, newsletters, columns. Send me
Very
your
cool.
thoughts.
Very cool. I'm gonna talk about my pop culture pick of the week then while you finish up
Yes.
this edit, Trillin. But I want to shout out The Acolyte, which is the new Star
Yeah.
Wars show. I reviewed it on the site, and it is freaking fantastic, folks. And I'm happy to report that because I've suffered through pretty much all the Star Wars shows. Like I've watched them all. I watched the Book of Boba Fett, which nobody did.
Oh
I don't know
God.
why I watched the Book of Boba Fett. I watched the Obi-Wan show, which is kind of cool to see Ewan McGregor back in the role and Hayden Christensen like
Mhm.
back as Anakin too, like in certain respects. Like it was cool to see that. There was actually a pretty cool Vader fight in that, but it wasn't interesting or additive. It didn't really like do much with Star Wars. Whereas The Acolyte, I won't say much about the plot of it, but it is essentially Star Wars doing Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon meets so many other things. And in fact, I love like every time the show calls it out too. It opens with a fight scene, a lone warrior stepping into like a bar or a tea house, seeking out the strongest warrior there, who's a Jedi Master played by Carrie-Anne Moss, Trinity herself.
Oh.
And she's a Jedi Master. The warrior is just like presents herself as like, let's fight. I have to kill you. And at some point, Carrie-Anne Moss says, "Who trained you?" And I'm like, that just gives me chills because that is like the
Yeah.
Michelle Yeoh
Wow.
conversation with Zhang Ziyi, or I think even Chow Yun-Fat said that. But it's sort of like, who are you? Where do you come from? The choreography is so good. Like the action is the best I've ever seen in Star Wars. So just want to shout that out. But also, this is I think 100 years before the time of the original trilogy. I think that's the High Republic time. I don't know like what the actual timeline is, but there are no Skywalkers. There are no characters you've ever seen before. It's just like a new
Oh
story
wow.
set in the Star Wars universe with people who have lightsabers and they have force powers. And I think this is the first Wookiee we see. There's a Wookiee Jedi Master, slight spoiler, but he's in the trailer.
Ooh.
Cool stuff. Just really well done, well written. I like the characters. It stars Amandla Stenberg, who has been she's been in a lot of things I like actually. But she has to do, or they have to do, a lot of like great action and great choreography.
Mm.
Especially like there's not a ton of fight scenes in the show, but the ones that are there that count. Also co-stars Mr. Lee Jung Jae from Squid Games, also as a Jedi Master, also essentially doing Chow Yun Fat in Crouching Tiger. Like there's a point where like the attacker is like fighting him and he is like effortlessly like just not even pulling his lightsaber, not even doing much, just like being chill about it. It is sort of a murder mystery. It is sort of like a character study too, and interrogation of like how the Jedi are sort of like Force gatekeepers. Like maybe they're not great. Maybe they're just
Mhm.
like space cops who keep the Force to themselves and uphold power, and maybe there are other people who should have access to these things. Like it is doing really interesting things within the Star Wars universe. I dig it. Daphne Keane is also in this. Manny Jacinto, Charlie Barnett, who was also in Russian Doll. The show was co-created by Leslie Handlin, who co-created Russian Doll, and I love everything she does, basically. But yeah, to see Charlie Barnett, who plays just kind of like a nerdy guy in Russian Doll, be like cool, badass Jedi Master. He's kind of a prick. He's kind of like a really uptight Jedi. He's like, you got to follow the rules. He's gonna rat out everybody, but also he's a powerful dude and he's strong and he looks cool. I think that's all kind of fun. So Sherlyn, I think you will have a lot to enjoy from this show. It is good. It's good so far. The first 2 episodes are up. I've seen the first 4 episodes and it is fantastic. Anything you want to shout
Nice.
out, Sherlyn?
I mean, I finally saw. Finally, I saw Furiosa actually a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I think it was really. It was like I was very sucked into the story from the very beginning. But
Mhm.
like I was watching it with my boyfriend, and he was like, "The CGI is like atrocious." I was like, "I didn't really notice,
No.
but
I mean,
maybe I don't know."
it's stylized, and I see
Yes,
people
it's a
doing
very
those complaints too. I have seen bad CGI. Like we've lived through
Yeah,
Quantum Mania and so much
exactly. I've
of
seen worse.
abuse stuff. Yeah.
So that I was just like, whatever. But so
Mhm.
Furiosa was good. So seconding your kind of recommendation on that, and then I went back and watched the Charlize Theron version of so
Mhm.
Fury Road. And then like something fresh that we haven't, I think, hopefully haven't mentioned on the podcast yet, but we've been around for a long time, so I don't know now. But this last weekend I watched The Trip to Spain.
Oh yeah.
It stars Steve Coogan, Rob Brydon. This is like the third installment in their sort of the trip, a series of
You
movies
just miss
slash
you miss Mobile World
serializations.
Congress, Cherlynn. Like you're like, I want to
I
take a
do.
trip to Spain.
And all I mean, like they I don't think they so they don't go to Catalonia, but they
Yeah.
go to
Yeah.
Barcelona at some point. And I mean, it's like basically a story set within this journey to like Spain. And so they hit a lot of the scenes are of eating this beautiful looking food. They have such gorgeous B-roll of the preparation in the kitchen and then the eating of the food. And then they go visit like, historical and culturally significant places and just a sort of a smorgasbord, if you will, of
Mhm.
like food, culture, tourism, story, comedy. Because every time they're sitting down eating a meal, Coogan and Bryden are like doing impressions of. This time around, they did a lot of impressions of Mick Jagger, for
Yeah.
example. They did Michael
But
Caine,
they did Michael
one of the
Caine.
older ones.
Yeah, that was a big one.
So yeah, so if you're ready for travel porn, basically,
Love it.
but comedy and some sort of story in it, I think that's a good one to watch.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cherlynn. I think we can wrap this, and then you can head off, and I'll do Q&A. That's fine.
Sure.
Yep.
Well, that's it for the episode this week, everyone. Thank you as always for tuning in. Our theme music is by game composer Dale North. Our outro music is by our former managing editor, Terrence O'Brien. The podcast is produced by Ben Ellman. You can find Devindra online at
Devindra on Twitter or Blue Sky or Mastodon, all over the place, and at thefilmcast.com.
If you want to send me the actual locations of where they shot The Trip to Spain or any of this nice food recommendations in Spain for if I ever go again, you can send them to me on Twitter, I guess. I'm at Cherlynn Low there, or on Threads, I am at Cherlynn. You can always email me also. CHER@engadget.com works. Email us your thoughts about the show at podcast@engadget.com. Leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you're listening, and subscribe on anything that gets podcasts.
Cool.
Yay!
Yay.
Okay, we got out when we should.
Yep.
Cherlynn, you
Yay!
drop off.
Go.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna
We'll
say
do
bye
chat.
to some people in the chat before I bounce. Deepro9 said something really funny. My burps, I did mention, sorry, apologies in advance, Ben, for the edit, because you may hear me. I kept turning around to burp. So
Yeah,
Move
AI
away
will
from
hopefully
the
eradicate.
burp.
Yeah, move away from
I moved away from the mic. I don't think the mic picked it up, and that's what I think Dpro9 or Declan were pointing out, that I didn't. Yeah, I didn't have any burps. Bye to Sammy, who's been here, doing their usual say hello and retract it jam. Brendan Styles is here saying hi. Miss Verdant had a bunch of questions. Simon B, I gotta go because I have a bunch of meetings, but it's been nice talking to y'all, and I leave you in the great hands of Devin Ben.
Bye.
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 All right, folks, what's up? Let me also kill my audio here. Do we have any good?
Oh yeah,
any
we
good
have
questions?
so many comments.
Mhm.
So thank you for being patient, chat. We can't always talk to you because I just want to make sure that the audio version is fun for the audio only people to listen to, but had a bunch of really good comments that I banked. So a couple of good comments from a JB Mueller. One says very basic AI will be free. But there will be a version as a paid service. This is talking about like Apple's AI when Apple ends up rolling out their own AI. And
I almost wonder if they
AI
won't, like,
Pro or Ultra or
we
whatever
didn't bring this up. I
I
almost wonder if they won't do that, is the thing. Like, to me, it seems like a weird, almost like a weird marketing move by Microsoft and Google to do that. Whereas Apple's like, hey, you pay for iCloud, cool. But they're not about like nickel and diming you on subscriptions, they are all about privacy and security. So it's like local AI would be the thing. I think they would like lean on so much. Yeah.
But
Mhm.
what I was talking about with JB is that it's very likely that Apple wouldn't even call it AI. I think they would give it some other marketing name.
It may just be Siri.
Yeah, it could just be like, hey, we're putting this in Siri, and Siri is smarter now. And they
Smarter
don't
Siri.
even mention why Siri is smarter. So
Mhm.
JP also says, since when is copying innovation? I'm not a hater, but everyone is copying everyone and calling it innovation. Is building a better mousetrap considered innovation? Because I would
Yes.
say that's what Apple does. It looks at all of the other mousetraps that have been produced over the last like 10 or so years, and it's like, okay, here's some white space. Here's some pain points. Let's make that better. They did it with the Vision Pro. Has there been a VR headset that you can control with just your little
Not
fingies?
with just the fingies. And I will also say, I think it does discount like how Apple innovates because no, a lot of the innovation of human history is about building on existing ideas. That's how it works. That's how like scientific research works. That's how so many things work. The spark of inspiration just to come out from something out of the blue, that's rare. That's rare among anybody. But I'd also argue like I think the iPhone was sort of that. Like there were a lot of smartphones and there was the BlackBerry and there were other devices.
One could say that they spent like years and years
Yeah.
just watching the BlackBerry market and being like, okay, we could do that better.
Well,
We could
there
do that
were
better.
Pocket PC devices that also had like giant screens, but they still had buttons, they still had like other stuff. So to like blow all that away and also destroy the market of the iPod because I think most companies would not take a super successful device like the iPod and be like, we're going to kill it ourselves with an even
Yeah.
better product.
Yeah.
Very few companies would do that. I think that's the sort of thing where we could like look at true innovation. Even the integration of like the mouse within the operating system and the GUI is something Apple saw from research. Steve Jobs and Wozniak saw from research at Xerox PARC. Nobody had implemented that as a product yet,
Mm.
but that was kind of a thing, and they also I think they knew Microsoft was thinking about it too. Um,
And I
those are
mean, they
things, yeah,
were probably still doing research of like people who are less computer literate, watching them like try to,
yeah.
touch things on the screen. And they were like,
Mm,
maybe we should do that.
yep, yep, totally it.
So on Apple and AI, just to round it out, the Moon says, I'm not a big Apple person, but if Siri isn't updated with a generative chat in this event, I'm back to Android. Seriously, Apple stuff costs too much to be dealing with this.
But I would say, like, what are you gaining with the generative stuff, I guess? Like, I would love to know, what you want that the generative stuff is gonna provide, because I think we're gonna get some of that, but I've used Copilot Pro, like, or Plus or whatever they're calling it, Pro. Um, it's not super useful to me unless you want somebody to just write your emails all the time, I guess. If
Yeah.
you'll help with that, yeah.
Yeah. And dude named Charlie says we need a real OS for the iPad to take full advantage of the hardware.
Mhm.
Absolutely. We talked about this a few
Yep.
episodes ago. If you want to go back and listen to us talk more about it, go find the episode where we talk about the M4 iPads.
Mhm.
Then we've got Michael Timson saying, so no devices. Are we really going to languish if we're professionals? I need to upgrade my trash can Mac Pro and really need a Mac Studio. What can I do? Because, correct me if I'm wrong,
Mhm.
were we talking about the M4 not making it to any of these Pro devices at all this year?
I mean, I don't know about this year because 'cause we're only halfway through, but
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna see like, people were talking about, like, when will we see an M4 or a MacBook Air? The MacBook Air came out 3 months ago, the M3 one, so it's gonna take a little while, and maybe Apple will speed up the cycle. Like, I think by the fall, we'll start to see the chip in new things. Um, my thing, like, especially if you need to update your system, like, you don't always need the latest and greatest chip, and also look into used systems. Like, the Mac Studio is still a great machine. It'll be replaced by something new in, like, 6 months or so, but it's still a great machine right
Yeah,
now.
so I was like, "Hey, Michael, like,
Mhm.
what do you need all this
Yeah.
power for?" He's like, "I use 6 monitors for music and video production."
Mhm.
My man's sitting like
That's
a
cool.
operator in the Matrix.
That's super cool. You definitely need to move on from the trash can Mac then. Like, the sad thing is, like, even, like, a low-level M series chip would probably be able to process stuff faster than whatever the
I
trash
don't
can
know.
has.
He's like,
Yeah.
"I need the extreme, I need the
You
ultra, I
need the
need the"
extreme. Yeah.
yeah, the crazy stuff. So then we've got Mist
Mhm.
Verdant saying, "Is anyone else just super enthused and pretty much 100% happy with the whole AI thing and all the announcements and advancements and can't wait to see where all of this goes?" It would be nice to be able to say that, but also you're watching people who are tech critics. The job is to criticize, isn't
The
it?
job is to think about it. Yeah.
And also put it in context of what these CEOs are saying that they want to do. And if they were to get their wish, their like 100% perfect wish, what would society look like if they were to do that?
Mhm.
Because we had Daniel Ek just recently saying like, oh, well, now that the cost to produce music is pretty much zero. He
Sure.
tweeted about this a couple of
He
days
did.
ago. And he's like, now that it's pretty much zero, we're just going to be able to like it's going to be so easy. One, while he's also talking about or while Spotify is talking about raising the cost of accessing
Mhm.
his marketplace. Okay, sure. So devalue the things that you're providing on your marketplace while raising the price to access the marketplace.
I think, like, especially now, we have to look like whenever these tech companies promise something, where can things go from there? Because we just lived through 15 years of the social media revolution, right? And
Yeah.
Facebook started as a fun little way to talk to your friends on your college campuses, even though it was born out of the idea of like a crummy hot or not like comparison site from Mark Zuckerberg. And
Mhm.
then it grew and it grew and it became
Hey,
the platform for
Friendster
yeah.
was before Hot or Not. We got MySpace before
Yeah.
Hot or Not, but still, yes,
I mean,
Facebook was the
yes,
real
but
revolution.
Facebook was the one that blew up and Facebook was one that got a shit ton of VC funding and
Yeah.
became the de facto social model. Then Facebook became news for everybody. You know, Facebook wanted to dominate everything, but it was not at all prepared for the role of being like media for everybody. And all of a sudden, we can point to instances of like Facebook communications or Facebook people sharing false stories leading to genuine genocides or
Yep.
sharing false information that like affected American elections. Like
Yeah,
these
changing
companies,
elections around the world, and
yeah,
also, if you think about it, Meta is the foremost purveyor of, like, online gossip these days,
sure.
because if your weird aunt isn't getting it through Facebook, the platform, they're sending, like, chain
Mhm.
texts on WhatsApp, also a Meta product.
Mhm. Let me give you a number. How many people do you think worldwide are using Meta products, Ben?
I would say, how many people are there in the world?
How
I'd
many
say
people are
probably
there in the
2/3 of the population of the Earth. So I would say like, I don't know, 1.3 billion or something.
That's not 2/3 because there are almost 8 billion people on
Oh,
Earth right
8
now.
billion? Okay, so let's say
And
like
right
3
now,
billion people then.
3.98 billion
Oh my
people.
god.
Half of the world's population are using apps tied to Facebook. This thing that started as a little website and which has like fundamentally impacted so many aspects of like our society. Hey, you could, I mean, it's easy to sit back and be like, "Hey, this is a fun tool to talk to my friends," but what does it mean? You know, what are the externalities of that? I think we're seeing this happen at hyperspeed with AI, right? Like we are people are talking about the environmental impact of it. Every ChatGPT command requires a ton of processing. That's why it's happening in the cloud. But we're
Which
doing this
is
to create
actually what Bryant Mitchell said. That was
yes.
another thing that I banked. Bryant Mitchell said the entire tech industry said, "Let's speed up the climate apocalypse together."
Together. Well, no, first we did it with fake money. First we did it with imaginary digital money, which used up all our GPU power. And now we're doing it with like, hey, I want to type a word and get a pretty image. That's the downfall of society, you know. I think we got to think about this stuff. There's a lot of exciting stuff. Um, but what does it really mean? And what do we lose in our humanity, I guess, and a little bit as a society as we lean more into like artificially produced content? I think that's something worth thinking about because we see the example of like algorithmically produced content from Netflix, and it's a lot of garbage stuff to watch. You know, it
Yeah.
all it
Yeah.
all kind of affects
I
everything.
mean, the moon is saying in the chat right now, government change is too late. Oh yeah, like the horses are already out of the
Yeah,
barn. Mist Verdant says there's absolutely no way Meta can properly moderate the content and so on using their networks. Absolutely. They cannot moderate the content and so on. I'm not going to let them go for that though.
yeah,
This is their own problem.
yeah.
Like
And it's a problem because they want to build at all costs without thinking of the safety measures that you should be responsible for if you're building, you know, something this powerful. So hey, It's that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to get any last minute comments in, this is your time. We're just about to wrap up.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for watching. It's
Thank
always
you.
fun.
Deeper9 says we just have to stop making electricity with coal. This is true. We also don't have proper battery storage for like full renewables yet. I want the renewable push, but we need a lot of stuff to even make that the thing. In Georgia, we just launched a new nuclear plant.
Oh yeah, I heard about
it's
that.
like billions of dollars over budget. It took way too long. Like there's a lot of stories about people lining their pockets with the construction of this thing, and also it also means everybody in Georgia, all their power bills are up by $30 to $40 now, just by default to pay for this thing
Yeah,
that they
yeah,
overspent.
and
So like it's good, but also it was a
so
mess. Yeah.
people are talking about a lot about kind of like storefront nuclear power. Like
No.
Bill Gates is putting a lot of
Yeah.
like money into like really small nuclear reactors. That would be really nice. That's not there yet. And so
Mhm.
in the current paradigm, in order to build a new nuclear power like generation station, do you know how much concrete goes into that?
Just
And
that.
did you know that Holcim is like one of the biggest concrete makers in the world, is one of the like top carbon polluters on the planet?
It's
So
it's a weird place we're in right now because like if we're like, okay, we got to shut down, but also there's a lot of pushes to like shut down nuclear plants too because people are afraid of that. But the thing replacing the nuclear plants is often more coal power or more natural gas burning
yeah,
plants, and
more
that
coal, more natural gas.
we're in a crummy spot right now, folks. So yeah, we just gotta
And
live through it, hopefully.
there have been protectionist tariffs on
Mhm.
solar stuff, which I understand it's meant to like further the case
Mhm.
of like American homegrown solar, but
We're
can we
not
really wait?
we're not as good. We're not as cheap. So anyway, things aren't good so far, folks. So this is also why we're like, we got to warn about AI because there are billion-dollar companies that are using all their marketing muscle to like convince you that these things are important, and we need people to be like, at least investigate that and justify, like, think about like why that stuff is happening.
Yeah, DPro9 says nuclear plants are a bad idea. Solar, wind, geothermal. Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
Concrete is
absolutely.
crazy, bad for the environment. Just saying. Yep. And Sir Holmes was saying, I want the power generation that aliens use. Well, we did get a little bit more power out of a fusion reaction than we put into it. So here's
Maybe
hoping.
someday. That's the whole thing. It's a shame, and we should maybe have a whole episode about power and like where all this stands because like yeah, nuclear could have been a cool thing, but we also spent decades stalling it, and like the time we could have made to do it better is just it's tough. It's
I
tough,
want to
especially.
get Rolly Williams from Climate Town on the podcast.
Oh yeah, most definitely. But yeah, especially after Fukushima was not that long ago, folks. You know, there have been like when there is a nuclear accidents don't happen often. When they happen, they're real bad. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
Okay, so I think that's
Mhm.
it from us. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thanks to the Moon. Thanks to DPro9. Thanks to Sir Holmes, Mist Verdant,
Thank you.
Bryant Mitchell. Chi-Ming Chung was around here a while ago. I hope you're still watching. Square Breaker, Declan, Buddy305 Love. It's really nice to see Buddy305 Love, also a chat hero. The video stream comes to you by Devindra on OBS. Camera switching comes to you by me. Also, the audio version, real important.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week around 10:30 a.m. Yes, 10:30.
After we will go to California, come back, and be
Yes.
ready by next
Yes,
week, 10:30
10:30 a.m. U.S.
Eastern.
Eastern time. We'll see you next week.
Later, folks.